because the whole project Fedora ambassadors are divided into 4 regions. That's EMEA, that's Africa, Europe, Russia, then North America, that's Canada and the US. LATAM, which is the Central America and South America, the Latin America, and then APEC, which is everything else, India, China, Australia, and all the countries in Asia. And here you can see how many ambassadors attended meetings. So as you can see, EMEA was probably the most active, with peaking like the top attendance was over 23 at one meeting, which is I think really nice. And the other regions were a bit below. It was like the North American was sliding a bit, which well, I don't know if it's any sign of like general activity in North America or not, but that's what we had for the regional meetings. And then let's go through the recent events. I'd like to summarize what has happened in Fedora ambassadors in the last year. Some important topics. And as I said at the beginning, the active and inactive ambassadors. We had a huge topic, a long discussion on ambassadors mailing list. If we should remove inactive ambassadors from the ambassadors group, if it's something like a status for a lifetime, so once you become a Fedora ambassador, then you are a Fedora ambassador for the rest of your life or not. Like my personal opinion is that a person needs to be somehow active in the community, or at least following the recent news and being somehow at least active online on mailing lists, following the mailing lists to be a good Fedora ambassador. Someone who hasn't been around for 5-6 years can't really be someone who can represent the Fedora community outside. And so, on the other hand, a lot of people were strongly against it, and like the main argument was that there is really no clear metrics for ambassadors' activity, because you can be active locally. I don't know, promote Fedora at your campus, or even your like broader family or something, and you don't even have to be active somehow that you can see through logs or mailing lists and so on. Anyway, we somehow found a consensus, and that's that we are going to mark ambassadors that haven't shown any online activity for the last 18 months, and in terms of online activity, I mean like any records on mailing lists, any logins to FAS, I don't know what else was there, but pretty much like using the Fedora infrastructure. So we consider someone who hasn't used any Fedora online tool for the last 18 months as inactive. On the other hand, we kind of met the demands of the group that refused the original idea, the way that we don't remove them completely from the group. They are still in fact ambassadors, but their accounts in FAS are flagged as inactive, and they are not on the public list of Fedora ambassadors, which was one of the main problems related to this, that people can see, for example, 10 Fedora ambassadors in some country. They are looking for some help. They need someone, to present Fedora at his campus or something. He's trying to contact them, and for example, there's just 2 or 3 out of 10 that are active, and he tries to contact, for example, first 3, and none of them is active, and he gives up. So in numbers, it's the case of 200 out of 600 ambassadors. So 200 out of 600 haven't been active, haven't shown any activity for the last 18 months.
So 400 are active.
So 400 are somehow around. That doesn't mean they actively contribute, but they at least show some activity. And as I said, the consensus is no one loses ambassador status, but it's like inactive. Which I think, on the other hand, at the beginning of the discussion, I thought we were not going to find any solution because there are really strong opinions. And on the other hand, after the discussion in the end was quite productive, and we really found the consensus about this. The Fedora ambassadors also take care of the budgeting for the regional support budgets. It's not this budget is not only for ambassadors, but ambassadors historically have been taking care of it. Pretty much, if I can sum it up, we get a sum of money from Red Hat, so in OSAS in particular, and then it's really up to us how we spend it. And we have, I think, the system, the government system, and the budgeting and tracking. It's, I would say, in open source communities, I haven't seen anything like that anywhere else, which is really nice. That you take quite a lot of money, and the volunteers all over the world, for example, you've never seen someone in person, and you still trust him enough because he's got really good record in the community that he will spend the money the way community decided. The last fiscal year, we are trying to follow the fiscal year of Red Hat for accounting reasons. So the last fiscal year ended in February. So the last fiscal year was our first, actually, with the new system. We had a few outcomes or findings, or a few lessons, let's say. The problem is with North American region. They don't really do any tracking in the community. So all we know about their spendings is what Red Hat or Ruth Suelle in person reports back based on Red Hat or financial data from Red Hat. But last year they at least had a plan how to spend the money. Unfortunately, they haven't come up with any plan this year. So North America
it's all on a public Google Doc.
Yeah, they do have a plan.
Every dollar gets spent across everything is all on a public Google Doc.
That's maybe
every single cent of it.
Yeah, I know that it was there for the last year. Maybe it's there for this year. That's maybe the problem because all other regions keep it in our wiki, which is like discovered.
So I sit on the other side. So basically, everything that comes through from the community, and I don't care how the community tracks or logs it, or that's the community problem. But anything as it actually completes of every single transaction gets recorded into the public Google Doc. So I have a record of everything that happened. So I don't know what the public record keeping. I don't stay out of that entirely. But I can provide anybody who wants a full spreadsheet of everything, every transaction happened across all the money.
Okay. Next lesson was that APAC, the Asian and Australian region, didn't spend up their budget. Like a lot of planned events and activities were cancelled. We worked on it with Tuan. It was for them. It was the first year when they really got some money, and they were supposed to plan their activities and plan how to spend their money. And they still need to work on that and get better in that because a lot of national communities, a lot of countries had really big eyes about organizing events and activities, and they never delivered. And as I'll show you at the next slide, then the region is going to end up with small money, because this is the classic corporate rule. If you don't spend your budget, then the next year the budget is smaller.
So I'll comment on the last one.
Because
I haven't changed the Fedora budget year to year at all. I've actually increased it regardless whether you spend it or not. So you didn't actually, the budget from year to year hasn't, since I've been running the budget from OSIS, the number doesn't go down, so you don't have to worry about that.
Yeah.
And I haven't made it go down.
Yeah. That's it went down for APEC, because other regions spent the budget completely.
You may have redistributed differently.
Yeah. That's
but
right. No, I'm not saying that the total amount is smaller. Definitely not. But if one region, spends the whole budget, and they have a really good record of events and activities, you tend to give them more, or you should give them more. While if one region fails to meet or fulfill their plans, then it's obvious they are not going to get that much next year. And if they spend a smaller budget completely next year, then of course they can ask for more to get back on track.
Yeah, this is an interesting thing where I think the project more broadly, I don't know, I've heard some comments with Matt and that, from the board and Fansco, and essentially saying, how do we want to strategically spend the money? And then you may not get exactly there, but sort of the general agreement on saying, these are the priorities for Fedora, and are we applying the money against the priorities? And then, and then that's also easier to get the point of saying, we need more, that I can give you more. But essentially going to, when you go into next, our cycle goes into like February next year, but actually saying, these are the things we want to achieve, and this is how we, that longer term planning cycle of, in order for the project to be successful, okay, and I'll use that word, this is what we believe we need to do, and then, my role sitting inside is to make sure you have the resources to do that. But with the lack of that prioritization, it's hard. So that's something that, since you brought it up, I would love to see that as a working topic over time. So
it's something we need to work on at the board level. And
definitely, it's not. This is based on any strategic plan.
That's what I'm saying.
Before this, we didn't really have any plans, and now we at least have like.
And now it's a tactical plan, and then
now you have corrective measures based on actual results, and the next stage is to actually have predictive.
So now if like the region wants some budget, they need to come up with activities and events they want to attend and represent Fedora at, but it's not really. There is not the level above that, like the strategic, like why we want to go to these conferences and.
Or should we go, what's the ratio of places we need to go talk to users versus getting committers versus sponsoring regional meetups versus marketing versus flying people to events? What's the general strategy for winning?
Okay, so those are the numbers for this year. It's public. You can find it on the Fedora wiki. And you can also find all the regional budgets there, except for the North American. So it's probably somewhere on Google Docs. But EMEA, APEC, like that, and you can even find the current tracking, like all the expenses that have been tracked in the community, because we are trying to track it ourselves in the community. First, it's faster than reports that come from the Red Hat financials, and it's also for us. If there are any differences, then we can, for example, find a reason why, for example, Red Hat reported something else. Because all our expenses we take in the community are backed by receipts, so there is always expense and I received that is tied to this expense.
So this 2015 is now, it matches Red Hat's?
Yes, that's
Just
now.
to make that clear to people who are not in
So
Red
those
Hat.
are the
Understand
budgets for this year.
The weird timekeeping where time begins in February, the year earlier than the year it is.
Yeah. It's always named after the year, the calendar year when the fiscal year ends.
Right.
So it's
And
so most of the fiscal year is in 2014, but it's called 2015.
And so does this include flock spending here in this?
No, it doesn't.
Okay, just want to make that
Flock
clear.
is a separated budget.
I'm pretty sure it didn't, given those numbers.
There's, on the other hand, we sponsored a few people from the regional budgets to go to Flock. Because there were a few, and I think it was also a nice initiative that people that really didn't match the criteria to be sponsored for Flock from the Flock budget. And we still thought they were, good contributors to come. We did like a small sponsorship program in EMEA for EMEA contributors because EMEA contributors are quite cheap to fly to the middle of Europe. So we sponsored 7 people from the EMEA budget, and the total amount is $2,000. And later, Latin America sponsored one person, and it was that the total amount was pretty much the same, but it's expensive to fly.
Yeah.
But it was a decision made by the region, like FAMSCO, and no one else didn't really force them to do this.
That seems like a good way.
Yeah. Then what we plan to do, what we kind of failed, is that we don't have any central budget for global activities. We plan to have some small budget that would be right under FESCO for global activities. For example, a lot of us have the 10 years of Fedora t-shirts, or we produced Fedora 19 t-shirts, which were pretty much gifts to contributors to either Fedora 20 or if it was this t-shirt, it was pretty much for a long-term contributors. I'm going to talk about it a bit more on the next slide. On the other hand, in the end, we didn't create such a budget. Originally, we planned to cut some slices from all the regional budgets, but we didn't really do that.
This comes.
So a comment there.
Okay.
So essentially, the way the total sort of public budget, just so that you got is that I've been rolling for the last 2 years is $195,000 US across the world, and then inside that I don't pay that I don't I essentially negotiate separately. So stuff like all your media, all the swag, most of the stickers, all those orders that I run. Or Ruth runs for you, comes not out of that 195. So like the $20,000 for your keys or whatever you do, media and all that I pay for over and above that 195. So like the shirts and stuff like that, because we do so much of that, I just roll that with the whole OSIS swag budget, and we just negotiate bulk prices.
That's new. Actually, it's been invisible for us because at least in terms of the regional budget, all we have been told was like this total amount, and then we worked out with Ruth, the distribution among regions, and we don't really know what budget in Red Hat is used for this, and
it's all out of my budget. So I can answer any questions you like.
I think, Carl, you can talk more about this, but I think that global initiatives budget comes down to the strategic planning for Fedora and Fedora board, where I think we'd like to have more ambassador involvement, in this as well. What do we need to do for Fedora to succeed, and where can we spend money that will have a really big return for what we spend? And maybe that will involve making some mistakes on some things, and I think Carl's probably flexible enough to allow us to try some things
I
out?
don't care if you make mistakes.
Yeah.
As long as we learn from it and don't make the same mistake
Yeah,
twice.
so we kind of need to put together a plan for some of the strategic things. You know, what are we going to do for success? How are we going to tell that what we tried succeeded or didn't succeed? And, you know, do we want to
That's,
double it next time or try something else, that kind of thing.
that's going to be a nice topic for the end of my talk,
All right,
for the
okay,
next
I'll
talk,
shut up then.
because that's pretty much about how Fedora ambassadors should align to Fedora Next Initiative and stuff. So as I spoke about the T-shirt, I think it was organized by Fedora ambassadors.
You've got T-shirt there, I'm sorry.
Oh. Okay, you don't see anything. Don't take pictures. Stop the camera. No, it wasn't definitely T-shirt. Anyway, T-shirt. What I was thinking of. Okay. Yeah, we produced Fedora 19 and 10 years of Fedora T-shirts for contributors. Like, we really got a great feedback. Like, a lot of people, it was just a T-shirt, but it was a very nice touch. A lot of people didn't really expect it. A lot of contributors, and it was organized by Fedora ambassadors. I produced the T-shirts. Bernard did the shipping. Criteria were determined by individual teams, so we asked as many teams as possible in Fedora community to nominate some number of people from their group. Then we contacted them to retrieve not emails but mail addresses. Then we shipped the T-shirts.
I never got one.
Who?
It's like yesterday.
Well,
Your team did not properly nominate
Yeah,
you.
I guess
Problems with the mail letter.
Yeah. And he didn't get either.
Even none from the internationalization team got one actually. So might be.
Yeah.
then you
So
have to,
we should be alert actually.
then you have to talk to Arbidak was one of the, and the other was Gabriela.
Mega.
Yeah. Malga, and it's Gabriela Trombini and Arbidak, it's Robert Meyer, who did all the retrieving, asking teams and retrieving addresses and stuff. Anyway, I'd like to say that it's an activity that we should definitely do in the future, and I think Fedora ambassadors would be happy to do it for the whole project. And that's the kind of things or initiatives Fedora ambassadors can do within the project for the rest of the project. Then this is more technical stuff for Fedora ambassadors. As you may know, it's not that easy, or you cannot become a Fedora ambassador right away. There is like a mentorship where you need to find a mentor in your region. There are usually like, I don't know, 35, 7, depends on region, mentors who are experienced ambassadors, and they go with you through some process, like to make sure that you understand the values of Fedora, you understand the project well and everything, and if you complete a mentorship, then you can become, or the mentor nominates you for the status of Fedora ambassador. The thing was that there hasn't been any clear process how to nominate mentors from ambassadors. Actually, when we started digging in, we found out that one of the mentors who has been a mentor for Leighton for a long time wasn't even an ambassador. Like Leonardo was, you can meet him here at Flog. He's like a respected person in Leighton community, but he was never officially a Fedora ambassador, and he somehow became a Fedora mentor. So we really need to find a process to how to make mentors from ambassadors. and the proposed process is like nominations by an existing mentor, approved by 5 existing mentors, and appointed by FAMSCO. I personally think it's like too complicated. I would remove one of the safety catches, like either approved by mentors or approved by FAMSCO, but it's still in discussion in FAMSCO. And I personally think that, in my opinion, the regions should be able to nominate people, because the regional community knows the best if they are in any like of mentors or not. And so let's go to some ideas for the future. This is exactly the same slide I had in my talk last year, and I still think it's relevant. Then we need to reach out. If we go to like Linux conferences, it could be Linux Tag, it could be FOSDEM. So we also need to take that into account. So it's definitely something Fedora ambassadors and I guess the rest of the community need to think about before Fedora 21.
I would also really like to see ambassadors being able to strongly advocate for the non-desktop products for cloud and server, and I don't know if that means having artifacts to hand out. If it's, you know, handing out a cloud image is hard, but maybe we make sure we have QR code things that point to it or something we can hand out that sit there prominently along with the DVDs. And I maybe even, you know, server USB sticks or server CDs that do the net install are valuable just for the sake of having an artifact. But I would like to make sure that we have ambassadors who are able to speak about those things, especially if we go to, you know, cloud conferences and, you know, things like going to conferences like LISA, which are sysadmin focused. We'd love to have them running a workstation on their desktop, but we also want them to know about the other things.
The problem with cloud is that pretty much every ambassador is a user of like Fedora desktop or desktop on Fedora, while very few of them are users of Fedora in cloud. Yeah. So it's something we can definitely help them by creating some list of selling points or something like that they can talk about. Or we produce the Fedora Cloud flyers too that you can hand out at booths and stuff. That was actually quite successful, the flyers. I'd like to make the flyers for example for the products, because it at least conveys some information. While if we give away a sticker or badge, it has some positive impact on our branding, but the user doesn't really taking any he's not taking any information from the book.
So I think two things, I don't know to make the cloud the whole thing, but if we need to grow our ambassadors in the areas of people who already are experts in that area, if we could, that's an area of growth for Fedora to work on, find people you can be ambassadors for Fedora Cloud, and then also help educate existing ambassadors about what Fedora Cloud is, and even what cloud is, because there's a lot of misconceptions about cloud computing and thinking that it just means hosted apps, whereas that is that's actually the output of cloud computing rather than what cloud computing is, and what we provide with Fedora Cloud isn't a competitor to Gmail, which is what people think of as cloud. So yeah, maybe I can talk to the cloud SIG about providing some educational materials for ambassadors. That might be to do for myself.
Actually, there is at least one ambassador in one governance group, like in workstation we have Christoph, in server group me, and in cloud I don't know, but at least one ambassador.
And we also encourage ambassadors to be members of or be involved in other parts of the project, because it's always better it makes them more connected with the project. Just not only representing the project, but being involved in either desktop, packaging, cloud, and maybe we can actually encourage contributors in those teams to become Fedora ambassadors, so that we can get the expertise in Fedora ambassadors.
We have to follow the program from the beginning, server group or cloud group or workstation group. So we have enough information for promote for some product.
Yeah.
In the next session, Christoph will share some much more about how to protecting Fedora next session.
Maybe we'll just invite some of the cloud experts from the cloud group to do a little education for the ambassadors or something like that. I'd love to do that.
That's something we could do.
Yeah, that's not a bad idea.
Yeah.
Our events like talk. So that's pretty much it for me. You can find me or email Eischmann at tiredhead.com or IRC or all the. I also publish a lot of articles about Fedora Ambassadors program at eichmann.wordpress.com, but it's all the articles go to Fedora Planet, so you can find me there too. So any questions? Yeah.
There was a discussion in PAMSCO, I don't know, something like 2 years ago, about trying to reach other teams to go to places that we don't go, something like design festivals, or I don't know. I have a lot of questions from people that needs computer assisted design, but nobody really knows about that because they are coding or infra, and so this kind of getting out of the comfort zone means that we need to help people from the design team to go to other conference. But we haven't really articulated with them, or we need to look for, I don't know, other kind of conference where translation will be an issue. I was requested, and it was too late to fulfill that request. in a English academy, they do a lot of translation work, so they might need something like this tool for translating. Transifex, exactly. It might be a good tool for them to make a server for the school or take projects into Transifex for translating, but there was nobody at the moment ready to make a presentation about that for this English academy that was in that moment spreading the word about tool for translating with a lot of teachers that are engaged in that activity. So it's how we reach out other part of the project that can help us get out of the comfort zone. That's something that we need to get back and make
I
happen.
think it has been happening just on the personal level. Like if you know someone from the other project and you think it's interesting to cooperate with them or just be there as a representative of Fedora, then you go there. But that's we don't have any formal initiative for that. I don't really have any quick and clear answer right now, but it's something we can discuss in FAMSCO.
I'm saying just to make this as a note for further talking and taking into account at some point, and like it say, just make mistake about that and learn about.
As I said, we should. I'm trying to tell that to all ambassadors, we really need to think outside the Linux conferences, and then maybe if we push the ambassadors this way, then maybe they start thinking about, yeah, well, there is actually a completely different conference, but Fedora might be interesting for them, or a completely different project. But so far, it's been really mainly the Linux and developer conferences. Any other questions? If not, so thank you for your time, and well, I guess many of you will stay there for Christoph's talk, which is going to follow or start where I ended. Okay, thanks.